Welcome to episode 211, Leslie Wexner, Billionaire, 9 Lessons. This is an outline of episode 211. Lesson number 1, the birth of an empire began with an argument between father and son. The year was 1962. Leslie decided he hated law school after 2 years there.
Mom and Dad had a neighborhood store. I'd gone to law school. I really hated law school. My dad said, why don't you just hang around the store for a few months before you begin your life? And I would look through the invoices to see, and I figured out that in what my dad called sportswear, they were making substantial profits. And in the big ticket items, then dresses and coats, they were making no money. And from that, we got into a very classic father-son argument. So he'd say, go get a job. Your mom and I have struggled our lives to have this small business, and we're going to run it the way we want to run it. And you don't know what you're talking about. I said, Dad, here's the numbers. They don't lie. We'd have a number of arguments back and forth. He'd throw me out of the store, say, go home, go find a job.
Lesson number 2, work harder than anyone else. 17 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Distinct competitive advantage that I thought I had, and the only one, wasn't the intellect, wasn't the merit of the idea, is that no one could outwork no one. If there's 24 hours in a day and I have to work 24 hours a day, then that's what I'll do 7 days a week. But if I'm half as smart as my competitor and I put in twice as much time, I'll at least match him. And if he puts in 40 hours and I put in 80, it's going to be a tie. And if I can work 90 or 100 hours, I can kick his ass. And I would get up in the morning thinking that and be at that store at 7 or 8 in the morning and leave at midnight, sometimes 1 o'clock, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, 7 days a week.
Lesson number 3, delay starting family until the age of 55. This is picture of Wexner and wife. This is picture of his 4 kids. Lesson number 4, less is more. His first store is called the Limited. Limited here refers to small assortments. He only carries women's sports clothing in his first store. In contrast, his dad's store carries every kind of clothing.
The Limited, because I had limited assets. People thought it was a terrible. It describes the assortment, and it's a romantic name.
This is a picture of his first store, the Limited. Lesson number 5, he understands the U.S. malls. His business expanded at the same time the suburban malls in the U.S. expanded in breakneck pace. That is from 1963 to 2013, or half a century. Lesson number 6, he understands specialty retailing.
Probably when I was in college, specialization was very popular. Friends that were going to be doctors weren't going to be doctors. They were going to be dermatologists. They were going to be cardiologists. No one was just going to be a doctor. So I was probably influenced by that and said, well, I can't compete with all these other guys because they have more resource and they know a lot. So what if I know a lot about a little, maybe I could find my way. So that idea of being a specialist, businesses that are focused on young women and clothing and what they wear and really knowing that customer and being very focused. So that now I don't have to compete with all the resources that, let's say, a department store has. I'm just competing with one merchant.
Lesson number 7, he's a turnaround artist. He bought Victoria's Secret from his founder, Roy Raymond, for $1 million when Victoria's Secret was bankrupt. He did similar turnaround miracle with Lane Bryant and Abercrombie and Fitch.
I called the owner up, found out who the owner was, and I called him. I said, gee, next time I'm in San Francisco, I'd like to meet you. And he said, well, what do you do? And I told him I had the store down the street. And he said, oh, I don't want to meet you because if you just want to understand my secrets. And, you'd probably want to start a business and put me out of business. I said, no, I'm just curious, which I was. And about a year later, I get a phone call. The guy says, this is Roy Raymond. Remember we had the phone conversation? I said, oh, yeah. And he said, are you still in? Would you be interested in buying my business? So it was his idea, not mine. If you want to buy it, you could buy it, but you have to come right away. And I said, well, maybe I'll be out in a week or 2. He said, no, the sheriff's going to shut me down tomorrow. So if you want to buy the business, you got to come out right now. So I said, okay. And just went out and met him. First time I met him, he told me about it.
Lesson number 8, how to anticipate the needs of women shoppers.
We're guessing what young women are going to want to buy next week and 3 months from now. You know, businesses that are focused on young women and clothing and what they wear, and you know, really knowing that customer and being very focused. So that now I don't have to compete with all the resources that, let's say, a department store has. I'm just competing with one merchant. And one of the things that influenced the business was Emile Zola's book, A Lady's Paradise. And the notion of Victoria should be a lady's paradise. It's not, if men like it, if men like Victoria's Secret, that's kind of a bonus. But in my imagination, they should feel uncomfortable when they're in the store.
Lesson number 9, how to make big bets, from apparel to beauty and lingerie.
Things begin and they peak and then they decline. So whether you look at life cycles of fashion or you look life cycles of things that people buy, designs, everything is in a life cycle. And so looking at things and saying, okay, where is this in the life cycle? Is it the beginning? You know, is it the harvest time, or is this the part where it now becomes obsolete? That thinking about the businesses that we've sold, it's like my instinct, my thought was it was about time in the life cycle and move on. So getting out of the apparel businesses and into beauty and lingerie, those were very big bets, but they were very deliberately thought about and tested over time.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave your questions and comments below. Wishing everyone peace and prosperity.